Why am I making these films? Because there's issues there that need to be highlighted that nobody is talking about. That is what I want to do with these films, is change the way people see veterans in this country.
There is 100% a need for this film that Richy is producing.
Showing people what people do and what people go through when you're in the forces. So I think it's a very, very good thing to show people a little snippet.
So it's allowing people the opportunity to see what is really going on.
It really hits home for me because I've lost a number of people that I served with. So when you do lose people through suicide, it has a big impact.
This film could have a huge impact in the armed forces community. We need to raise awareness.
An indirect voice for us all.
A lot of people suffering that are from the forces community, whether they served or didn't serve.
There are so many veterans now who aren't seeking the support they need because they can't find it.
People are suffering massively. There's over 5 suicides on average every single week.
We need to raise awareness about this.
The reason I wanted to make this film is dead simple, is because there's so many issues there to do with ex-forces, people leaving the army, not being able to fit in, turning to drugs and alcohol, homeless, and suicide rates being at the very highest it's ever been. Last year alone, we lost 517 people who left the forces, whether that be recently or, a few years ago. There's 517 people committed suicide who have previously been in the forces in the UK. What you've got to bear in mind is, in the Afghan war alone, in 20 years of being in Afghanistan, we lost 457 people. So last year, we lost more people in the UK than we did in 20 years in a war zone, at home where we're meant to be safe. And that's not right. The problem is, the mainstream media will not report that. And this is the problem that we're having. I think we are meant to believe that it isn't that bad, but why we're doing this is showing people, well, actually, it's not in a good state, and this is what we want to highlight with this film.
I'm Laura Ingham. I'm the Managing Director of Armed Forces Community HQ, and I am the partner of somebody who's served. I know Rich, the larger-than-life character. Met him quite recently at an event that we were planning in Crewe, and I really kind of bought into his mission and what he was trying to deliver for this community. I think to make a film about the struggles that people have when they're leaving military service is absolutely vital, because we don't always get a full picture of what people go through when they're resettling.
I'm Tom Sumner. I was in the Paras for 10 years, and I know Rich through social media, and then we got together, obviously got history in the military, so obviously we've just kicked it off to a good thing, because we're both in business as well, so we're doing stuff for each other as well with business.
I'm Sebastian, and I am one of the founders of the NAFI Break CIC, which is based here in Cheshire. So, mutual colleague through the local authority, Richard, the Armed Forces Champion, put us in touch with Richy as one of the veteran providers in the area. So he's a company that looks at supporting veterans locally. It just happens that he's a veteran himself. We spoke, we hit it off, had a good chat about mutual interests and the way that we want to support veterans in the area, and the way that he approaches it, for doing it from a media side and giving that exposure, and the way that we approach it, which is to deliver services and support on the ground. And we've just been working together on that, and to try and raise awareness about all the issues that are going on in the veterans sector right now.
I think the benefit for this film for the armed forces community is, again, it's just showing people outside the army what people do and what people go through when you're in the forces. So I think it's a very, very good thing to show people a little snippet of what we go through and the emotions and things when you're going on tour, the things you've seen and done and have had to go through and on your own as well, maybe. So I think it just it will help the people in the armed forces as well, because it's sort of an indirect voice for us all.
So how I know Rich was through, obviously my husband met Richy through other entities in the armed forces, and they've become like best mates, honestly. Like they ring each other more than like girls do, but they've connected and they've really helped each other out.
So the reason why we've done this short film is as a concept. When I first got this idea and I wanted to make this big film and stuff, and again, this is all totally new to me, I went round to different investors, different people within the industry and said, I want to do this. A lot of people, and quite rightly so, turned around and said, well, how can we invest in something that you've never done before? And it's a lot of money that you have to. I completely get that. So I said to all of which, I'll go out, I'll make a short film, a concept, and I'll show you what I can do on a really, really small scale, which is what tonight is about. And that's what you're going to see at the end. So this is something that we've done on a very, very small budget, just to show people, you know, we can do this. It's not the normal way that people would do it, but it works. We really want to do it like this. It's a total different spin on how it is. Also, I don't want it to be controlled from the outside, which is why we want to keep it all in-house. And yeah, this is what tonight is about, is a concept to hopefully try and raise some money to be able to start the big film in January next year.
I fully support the approach and the idea that Richy has got about getting the message out there, because one of the failings within the sector is exposure, people understanding and seeing what the actual impacts that veterans and even the service families are having. The optics of the care sector is pretty poor. People don't know where to go. They don't know how to access the support, and they don't even believe a lot of the support is even there. So when people do get to see us, get to meet us, they're surprised at how much support there is there for them and the kind of help that they have access to. So we need someone like Richy and Motion Focus Media that are going to make that exposure, get it out there to the wider public, so that people can say, oh, you should go to this organisation, that organisation, because we've seen what they can deliver and what kind of support that you've got available to you.
So I'm Gareth Watton. I spent 20 years in the forces and I left 3 years ago due to a medical injury. So I know Rich from back in the day when we used to be in the Mercian Regiment together. We did a couple of operational tours together. We were based out in Germany together and a few other exercises, bits and bobs. So at this moment in time, I feel that there is 100% a need for this film that Rich is producing, due to the fact that there is a disconnect between what people that have served in the forces are going through and why they're going through it. So it's allowing people the opportunity to see what is really going on, and raising awareness, which is much needed at the moment. So I feel that this film that Rich is making at the moment is coming at the right time. There is a lot of people suffering that are from the forces community, whether they served or didn't serve, and have direct connections. But again, it needs to be highlighted that these people are suffering, and at the moment there are people that are not being held accountable for their support that they are giving to them. So hopefully this will raise that awareness and help people further.
To make the short film, you're gonna laugh about this, we didn't actually get permission to film in the cemetery. And I apologise for the 2 or 3 people that are sat in the seats inside the cinema who work for Cheshire East Council, that we didn't actually get permission to make the short film. Now, this is the problem. I'd sent 14 emails to 3 different people at Cheshire East, and not one of them got back to us. And all we were asking was to shoot the short film in the cemetery. Nobody would give us permission to make the short film. So I rang somebody who's sat in the audience, and I'm not going to name you, but you know who you are. I rang this person and I said, listen, I am not sending one more message to these oxygen thieves. I am just going to make the short film and then we'll ask for forgiveness later. So he said, Rich, you're going to give me an absolute heart attack. Cut a long story short, I met the guy at the cemetery to do a site visit. Now, I'd got all the risk assessments ready, I'd got everything ready that I thought the council were going to ask me for. We did the site visit, and then he said, right, okay, Rich, I will let you know if you need anything else and whether I can get you permission. Give me a week or so and I'll find out for you. I sent this same guy an email about a week later and said, hi mate, you okay? What's going on? Do you need anything from me? I've sent you the risk assessments. Is there anything else you need? We need permission. Can we get it? Now, bearing in mind, we were filming the short film, I think, on the 15th of July, and I got an automatic email response back saying, I'm out of the office till the 16th of July. Please contact me after that. I rang the person at the council who I've been speaking to and said, listen, I am making this. I don't care what people say. Let the council try and sue me, but this is absolute, bollocks, pardon my French, because it's just a communications nightmare. And what you get is, you don't seem to think that people care. Like, we weren't asking for money, we weren't asking for anything. All we wanted is a yes or no answer, whether we can go and film something for 2 hours, and we couldn't even get that, even though it would have helped massively, and it will help massively because we've done it. So any backlash that comes off that, you know where to go.
We do know, however, that 68% of people who are looking for housing at the moment who are veterans are early service leavers, and we do know that they come with multiple complexities, things like unhealthy relationships, huge debt and welfare issues, substance misuse and justice system involvement, and finding accommodation for those people is as hard as it's ever been. So having a real focus on this journey as true to life as possible is vital for this sector right now.
So I feel once this film's released, it will help the armed forces community immensely, because what it will do is, one, it will raise awareness, but then on top of that, it will then allow people to communicate better with each other and stand together versus being an individual feeling like you've got no choice but to deal with it on your own, which is kind of where most people, including myself, have been for a long time, where we've just suffered in silence just because we're in that same mentality and mindset that this is kind of the way it is, whereas that's not helpful, and it's not helpful for the people that are suffering still. So allowing them to be able to communicate better it's going to be mental.
My name's Zoe Robson and I served 12 years in the Royal Military Police. So I met Rich this time last year. I found him on TikTok and invited him in for a treatment because he was famous on TikTok. Yeah, I found him on TikTok and I was like, hey, do you want to come for a treatment, but then give me a review and I can take a picture of you? That's what I did. And then he ended up moving next door. I think the film that's being made is really needed. I think it's really important that veterans are highlighted, and actually the transition from moving from military life to civilian life isn't as easy as people might think, and people are suffering and there is help that's needed for veterans. My personal experience from the transition of leaving the military, coming into civilian life, was a little bit different. I became a mum and decided that was the reason that I was leaving, and I had that to concentrate on. It wasn't until 10 years after I left that actually I started to get PTSD symptoms. I started to be affected by fireworks. Things started to come back into my brain that I hadn't even thought of.
I think it's really poignant, especially at this moment in time. There's a whole thing about mental health awareness and stuff like that, but you look at what's the root of it. Yes, you've got to make awareness of it. I don't think there's enough, especially the armed forces. I know there isn't enough support there for them. It's like the unsung heroes and everything like that. And it's just great to be part of, or be able to be part of something in some way that you can know that might change other people's lives, or even just help other people who watch it or anything like that.
We just don't want to be let down by people who are using the charitable sector and the CIC sector to effectively defraud people and to steal money that should be going to the people that deserve it and need the help.
Just showing people live how easy it is to doctor a fake gun to look real.
Please do not do this. Please don't do this at home.
Do not try this at home. 0738447. We'll do it for you. So Rich rang me up a couple of days back to ask if we could paint a gun, not a real one, for a short film that he's making that's going to end up being a bigger film. So we've come over to BS Supplies again to speak to Paul, a bit of advice on paint and what we can use, what we can't use. So we stripped it down this morning whilst we've been here, painted it. Hopefully it looks good, looks like the real thing, which is what he's after.
Improvise, adapt and overcome.
Imagine walking through a crew with that now.
Probably not.
Make you be arrested straight away.
So some of the negative issues with serving soldiers that are transitioning out the forces that I've noticed is mental health awareness needs to be highlighted a lot more, especially for the institutionalised lads that have spent over 22 years in the forces. Just because they've come to the end of their time, they don't go through the same process as the soldiers that have been injured, so they don't get the opportunities to discuss their mental health issues. They don't get to fully go through a full procedure on, say for example with CTW, career transition workshops. That just gives you a broad brush breakdown of the basics of what you need, for example your CV writing, attending certain places, going onto LinkedIn, going to certain meetings and networking events. But again, it's very wide and it's not personalised to the individual, which is very difficult for the forces to achieve. But I think if they can do that, back to the original point, the soldiers will then leave with a better tool set, as well as the retention for the forces will be greater, because it's not a case of you do your 22 years and that's you finished. They will then set you up properly to leave.
I think the benefit that this film can have on the armed forces community is that it might, for once, show really what our veterans go through, instead of people just telling you or seeing it mulled over. To actually see visually the struggles, and to have somebody that is a veteran putting it out there because they know already, and using veterans to show is just what's needed. And I know it's going to do really well. I just do, and it's needed. It just is. It's needed. It's going to change people. It's going to change lives.
The main impacts on veterans transition come through the training that people receive in the armed forces. I'm not the only one aware of the issues when you train to become a soldier, for example. There's a lot of conditioning that goes on involved in that you need to have to be able to do the job, and there's no sort of detransition from that. So if you get a young person, male or female, straight out of school or college, and they go on, you condition them to be a person before they've fully developed. That's something that then is going to stay with them for the rest of their life. It can't be deprogrammed. It's something that's going to be essentially permanent. So we need to do something that can help them detransition and deprogram that in a way that'll not impact them for the rest of their lives.
When Seb left the armed forces, obviously he went through the resettlement and whatnot, and he just couldn't find a job over here in the UK. Other companies wouldn't recognise his qualifications that he gained in the military. So he tried. I can't even tell you how many jobs he applied for, and none of them took him on. So he ended up then working abroad as a private contractor, going through exactly the same things that he left the armed forces to be away from. He ended up going back into it just in a private security way. And again, that there was issues coming back from that, because again he'd lost people with that as well. So I find that he really, really struggled mentally leaving the armed forces, and even when he was in there, he kept going to the doctors and telling them that something wasn't okay, and they just kept saying, "Man up, go away." Yeah, and that's something that I just can't deal with, because if someone's had the balls, let's say, to come up to you and say that there's something wrong, you shouldn't be dismissed. And they just dismissed him, and he kept telling them. And then these things appeared at home. So, and it's been a massive journey for going forward from there. So it took a lot of hard work. When he was in severe crisis, it hit him years after leaving the military. So I knew it was there in the military. I knew that he was suffering with PTSD. I knew already, because we'd had incidences, but I feel like he just masked it over for a long time, and then when it came to, God, years later, you know, he got off a train from London and he was just not okay, and I knew then that we needed to do something, and I honestly didn't know who I was meant to ring, what I was meant to do. I had no clue, and he was literally a broken man. So obviously I rang the doctors, then the doctors saw him, then they put us in touch with this person and that person and this person and that person, and all together to get him the help he needed, it took a year. And I think that's a year too long in my eyes, because, you know, things can happen so quickly with people, especially with mental health, that a year's a really long time. But it was about a year to get the things in place, like therapies, you know, just to make sure he was on that right trajectory. But yeah, I found that a real struggle with not knowing what to do. I was clueless, and when it came then to me ringing, like we went back to earlier, I needed help and support, and I didn't have it.
All the characters in this film and every single story and part of the script is based on factual, true events that have happened. So it's not just my own story, it's also other people's stories mixed in within the film. And that is because we're trying to highlight real issues, like real stories, and what the solution to them problems are. So every single story in this big film that we're going to make is real, true, factual stuff that's happened.
So with the local authorities and charities, there is some support, but it's knowing where to look. And most of the time it's through word of mouth. There is very few charities that I've personally had dealings with that I can sit there and go, yeah, they are absolutely brilliant at what they do. The problem there is at the moment, there is a lot of CICs and charities in general that are supposed to support the forces that are not exactly cutting the mustard for what they should be doing. And there is now cracks appearing across the board with these charities at the moment. And I feel that if they focused more on what their first mission was when they set the company up, the soldiers' interest / ex-serving soldiers would be back at the forefront again. The smaller ones seem to be the ones doing the most impact. You have these big companies that are not doing what they should be doing, and then these smaller ones are picking up the slack for them. And what's ended up happening now is these smaller charities, which are trying their hardest to do what they can to support the serving soldiers, they're struggling to keep up to demand because people are starting to lose faith in the bigger firms.
This film should be made because it's phenomenal, and Richy's skill set is beyond anything that I've seen. He just knows what's right, what hits right. Even when it comes to even lighting, sound, everything, he just knows. He knows the emotions, he knows the impact, he knows the feelings, and it's just going to do well. I know it, and you know, everyone just needs to support it. That's what we need.
I think what Richy's doing is just trying to make people aware, and I think having that support when you leave, I don't think a lot of people, people in the military, know what's available when you leave and who to go to. So I think the more that's active on social media and actually from your local councils all the way through to sort of government level, they need to be very transparent in what is available, and you shouldn't have to go looking and digging for certain things. You should go, right, these are the things what are available to you, not just a piece of paper when you leave. It should be ready available for you to go try and sort of easily find something if you do need the help.
It really hits home for me because I've lost a number of people that I served with in my unit alone, and I only come from a small unit. There's only about 400 people at any one time that serves in the unit itself. So when you do lose people through suicide, it has a big impact, because you would have known those people, you would have met them, you would have come across them, you would have gone on tour with them. And in my case, I served on multiple tours with 2 of the lads that took their lives. And I felt quite angry at them in a way, because they didn't reach out, they didn't ask for help. You know, there was lots of stuff going on that they didn't talk about and that I didn't know about. And I think now, because of what we do, I could have at least tried to help them and point them in a direction of where they could have got help, and then they would be here today and they wouldn't have left people behind, their families, their loved ones, their children even, that are having to suffer with that now.
So the maddest thing about this short film that you're going to see tonight is Seb, who played the squaddy in the short film, wasn't actually meant to do the acting. Now, I'd asked somebody to do this originally, I won't say who it is, but I got let down. So this is like 7 o'clock at night, I was coming out of the gym and I had a message off somebody saying, listen, I can't come tomorrow, can we reschedule? I was like, well, no, there's like 9 people coming to the cemetery in the morning and we can't reschedule. So Seb, the absolute diamond, I rang Seb straight after that phone call and I was like, mate, I'm struggling. Like, we've just been let down by the person who was meant to do the acting. And he said, mate, don't worry, I've got you, I'll do it. And honest to God, I am so happy that it's panned out the way it's panned out, because I honestly couldn't see this short film now without Seb. And he's like a big brother to me now. You know, he looks 21, but he's fucking nearly 50. Sorry, Seb. But yeah, so he's absolutely pulled it out of the bag. So it's just one of them things, innit? Don't ever let something stop you. You know, and this is, I suppose, what I'm trying to get across in this point is, should there be hurdles, we will get over them.
People should get involved in the film, one, because it's going to help other people understand, again, what people in the forces go through. And I think the more people that get involved, other people are going to start getting involved then, aren't they, as well? And I think it's just the more people who are involved with the film, I think it's just going to push it further and further, which again is a great benefit for everyone in the forces.
The film that's being made has literally blown me away. It's so heartfelt, and the first time that I'd previewed it, it literally made me cry. And it really does give a true reflection of what our veterans have to go through on a daily basis and just what they feel, and it really did. It gave me goosebumps, and it still does every time I see it, so it's wonderful. It's just what we need.
My name is Ollie, and I have never been in the armed forces before, but I've worked with Rich, I've worked with Seb, I've worked with many people that have been in the armed forces, and through the months that I've worked here, I've gained so much knowledge about the armed forces and all the problems that have come with coming out of the forces. I think this film needs to be made. Even though I've never been in the army, I've been around so many people that have been in the army, been in the forces, and I just genuinely think that this film is needed because I've seen it firsthand of what it does to someone, even though I've never experienced it myself. From talking to all these people that I work with, like Seb, like Rich, like Zoe, I can see how much of an impact it's made on their life.
This film could have a huge impact in the armed forces community. We need to raise awareness about veterans leaving and mental health. There are so many veterans now who aren't seeking the support they need because they can't find it. We need to raise awareness about this.
Yeah, the short film, I've seen it. I've seen part of it, and it is really, really, firstly, good quality, but the actual film is hard hitting. It's straight to the point. And like I say, it's very well thought of as well. It's quality, to be fair.
So the short film, Rich sent it to me. I think it's extremely powerful. I got very emotional over it.
I have seen the short film and I cried. I really cried. Seb is just brilliant. He's perfect at what he does, and the way that Rich has captured it is just absolutely beautiful. As short as it is, it says everything about somebody leaving the armed forces and the demons that can suddenly arise in the head.
The hardest part about making something like this is, I suppose, the emotional aspect to it. You know, it really hits home everything not that we've done before, but even down to writing the script. You know, there's a lot of stuff in there that, for my own sort of personal journey, that is in there that, you know, I don't want to go back to that place, and I won't. But, you know, going back through that and even doing some stuff with Seb, and, you know, sat there and we're trying to film the short film, and we've both been in tears and, you know, stuff like that, you know, going through the script and the voiceover that's going to be on it. You know, it really hits home, but that's great because you know it's hitting where it should be hitting, and that is what it's about. And you know, we're not pulling any punches with this. It is hard hitting, emotional, and everything that it should be.
The short film that I've seen already is amazing. I can only imagine how much work went into it. I think having people in that film who have experienced some of the issues that we're going to talk about is vitally important, and Seb's acting was pretty good too. The benefit of this film to the armed forces community is huge. Sometimes we don't have the important conversations. Sometimes we don't actually get a feel for what's going on at all.
The key thing I want people to take away from this is that there are issues that aren't being addressed. There are big charities that aren't helping people. There's on average 5,000 people who have been in the forces that are living on the streets of the UK at the moment, and that is disgusting. And the whole purpose of this concept and tonight is to show people, you know, what is going on, but the bigger film will be the bigger picture, and really getting into the nitty-gritty of showing people what is happening in the UK with ex-forces at the moment.
People need to get involved in the film, because without people getting involved in the film, we can't do it. We all need to pull together and show the world what needs to change. But we can only do that if we all pull our socks up and say what we all need to say, because, you know, people moan about it and they have an opinion, but they never step forward and say, you know what, times need to change, this is what we need to do. So that's what needs to happen going forward. And I think that this film can definitely do that, if we all step in and make a big voice about it.
This film will make a really big difference to people understanding what the journey is, but what the journey could ultimately look like if we all worked a little bit better together.
I just want to say from the bottom of my heart to everybody in this cinema tonight, thank you, because without you we couldn't have even put this on, and that means the absolute world to all of us. And what we're trying to do tonight is raise as much money as we can to be able to make the big film. So whatever you can do, you know, we really, really appreciate it. Even if it's £1, even if it's a tenner, you know, whatever you can do to help would be massively, massively appreciated. So on the way out, after the short film, you will be given a leaflet at the top of the stairs there, which will have a QR code on it. If you scan the QR code, that will take you to the crowdfunder, and on there you can make donations, or if you wanted to do something with start even a bit of acting, whether it be sponsor the premiere for the big one or sponsor the film. We are still looking for business partners to get involved, so whatever you can do, I really appreciate it, and I hope you've enjoyed this evening, and I will see you at the after party over there.
I feel the film is aimed at a category of men that need our support now more than ever. Males between the ages of 25 to 45 are really struggling, aren't reaching out for help, and don't often know what is available. They're simply told to crack on, and that needs to change.